Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving into the absolutely fascinating science of visual learning. And to make this fun, we're going to frame this whole thing like a soft, warm cartoon. So I want you to picture a little student cat. This kitten absolutely loves to read. Specifically, they love comic books and graphic novels, but they are constantly getting into trouble for it. Well, through the journey of our little feline friend, we're going to uncover the very real, very cool brain science behind exactly why we process sequential art the way we do. See, our little cat protagonist is often told by a skeptical teacher, let's call him Mr. Hound, that comics are just a distraction. Mr. Hound is a bit old school. He believes that reading anything other than dense, plain text is basically just goofing off. But we have to ask, is that actually true? We're going to explore whether graphic novels and comic books actually make us smarter and look at the exact reasons why our brains might actually prefer them. Section 1. The cat loves comics. To really understand this, we have to start with a core biological fact. Are you ready for this? Our brains process visual information 60,000 times faster than plain text. Research into visual learning points out that humans are just fundamentally visual creatures. Think about it. Traditional text requires us to decode information sequentially, word by word. But when our little cat looks at a comic panel, their brain is simultaneously interpreting the environment, the mood, the time of day, the emotions, the dialogue, and the action, all in just a fraction of a second. That is literally a learning superpower. Plus, there's actually a very good scientific reason we are learning this from a kitten right now. Research into teaching STEM disciplines highlights specific advantages of graphic novels, and one of those is using anthropomorphizing objects of study to help students connect with the material. Basically, using animal characters. When students learn complex physics or math concepts through the lens of animal characters or relatable avatars, they engage so much more deeply. The narrative draws them right in, making abstract scientific concepts feel immediate and personal. Section 2. The 1954 Comic Panic. Now, to understand Mr. Hound's skepticism, we actually have to travel back in time. During a massive historical panic in 1954, the United States Senate held highly publicized hearings. Their goal? To investigate whether comic books were the direct cause of juvenile crime. Seriously, authorities were taking the content of comics so seriously, they were treating it as a literal public health problem. The hearings were intense. On one side, you had Dr. Frederick Wertham, a psychiatrist, who testified that crime comics caused intense ethical confusion in children. He argued they developed a Superman complex, basically relishing in the unpunished triumphs of evil characters. And on the other side was William Gaines, the publisher of entertaining comics. When questioned about the limits of what he would publish, Gaines frankly defended his right to print without limits, stating that his primary test for what went into his magazines was simply whether or not it sold. Well, as you can imagine, this intense political and public pressure freaked the comic industry out. To avoid government censorship, they decided to self-regulate, forming the Comics Code Authority in 1954. This established a super strict set of rules. Good always had to triumph over evil. You literally couldn't even use the words horror or terror in a title, and policemen and judges could never be disrespected. All gruesome illustrations were totally banned. This essentially censored mainstream comics for decades. And, that's the exact strict cultural environment that skeptical teachers like Mr. Hound grew up in. Section 3. The brain's visual magic. Let's jump back to the present day, because modern cognitive science proves those old skeptics completely wrong. Cognitive scientist Neil Cohn has neural research proving that our brains read sequential pictures using a structured grammar, exactly like reading a spoken sentence. His experiments actually tracked brain waves and found that an image acts as a setup, followed by a peak climax and a release. When this visual grammar is messed up, your brain reacts with the exact same confusion as when you read a sentence with terrible grammar. Your brain literally treats a comic strip as a highly complex language. Furthermore, the physical medium really matters. Brain scans from recent neuroscientific studies reveal something amazing. Reading physical comics actually requires less mental effort than reading on a digital tablet. When readers consumed physical comics, they showed reduced activity in the brain's language processing regions. Why? Because the rich visuals on paper quickly build a strong, reliable mental foundation, kind of like building blocks. It makes it so much easier on the brain to learn new information later on. Section 4. The dual coding power. So, the ultimate secret weapon of the comic book is something called dual coding theory. This theory postulates that our working memory has separate channels for processing visual information and verbal information. When words and pictures team up, like they do perfectly in a graphic novel, the brain processes them together. They combine into a single, unified mental schema. Because the brain is only processing that one combined unit, it prevents cognitive overload. It allows our little cat to absorb incredibly complex ideas without getting mentally fatigued. And the results of this? They are completely undeniable. Because of what neurologists call the pictorial superiority effect, memory retention skyrockets. Think about this. If you just tell someone information orally, they're only going to remember about 10% of it 72 hours later. But if you add a picture, that recall soars to 65%. That gives our CAT student a massive memory boost compared to peers who are only reading dense, pictureless textbooks. Section 5. Comics in the classroom. When Mr. Hound finally looks at all this data, even he has to admit the results are incredible. Comics provide structured visual cues, like exaggerated facial expressions and body language. These directly activate our mirror neurons, helping readers physically mirror the emotions they are seeing. This is phenomenally helpful for autistic children who might get overwhelmed by long blocks of text, allowing them to understand emotional context and learn empathy. Plus, research shows graphic novels are incredibly effective at teaching complex STEM topics, like algebra or physics. Studies even show they disproportionately improve reading comprehension for females and seniors compared to their peers. And the impact on overall school culture? It's staggering. Educational advocates point out that when school librarians simply add graphic novels to their collections, overall library usage jumps by an astounding 80%. It even increases the circulation of non-comic material by 30%. Graphic novels don't stop students from reading traditional books. They act as a powerful engine that drives a broader love for reading across the board. So, it turns out our little cat was right all along. Far from being a distraction, comics are a highly sophisticated, neuro-friendly medium that supercharges memory, builds empathy, and deeply engages the human brain. Now that you know the amazing brain science behind visual learning, what new topic will you and your brain explore next through the power of comics? Thank you for joining me on this explainer.
Knowledge grows through sharing. What are your thoughts on today's topic? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe as we continue to grow together.